Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Simply PHP. We are live.
Nice. Hello.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Hi everybody.
That's right.
We are here in Montreal on Peel Street. The whole company is here today. Everyone came to work. Just a little shout out to everyone. All right.
The first question is from Malcolm in New York City. He wants to know the benefits of Laravel. I'll open the floor.
Open the floor. Wow.
Yeah.
Who wants to start with that?
I guess I'll
Andrew?
jump in on that. So Laravel is as you know, it's a PHP framework, and the beautiful thing about it is that it comes pre-installed with a lot of functionalities that you would find very useful in your development process. For example, it comes with middlewares which you use to target requests that are incoming to your applications. It comes with features like Eloquent, which is an ORM helper class that allows you to be able to modify how you interact with your models versus your databases, and so much other features. For example, queuing and mail templates. It comes with a lot of functionalities, and as well the Blade templating systems, which allows you to use PHP to develop your front-end view, and it also interacts perfectly with your backend. So there's so many benefits to using Laravel, and they're constantly updated. I see as of we speaking right now, they have I think 6.2 or 6.3. It's an active community that constantly works on it, so it's always up to date on the latest technologies out there. So it is highly recommended, and that is why it's our go-to for most of the projects that we do here at Simply PHP.
I have a follow-up question to that. Do you feel that Laravel is contributing to the domination of PHP? Because let's say, for example, Laravel didn't exist. I'm not sure PHP would continue to be so dominant as it is now, as it continues to be. Laravel seemed to kind of blow everyone else out of the water.
It's the thing with that is that PHP itself is a great language, and I think it's the fact that Laravel is built on top of it, that Laravel exists in itself. It's great for the PHP community. But with that said, PHP is a dinosaur of its own in the sense that it's there's other frameworks that are out there that are just as beautiful as Laravel. For example, we have obviously Symfony, the Zen frameworks, just to name a few. So there are other frameworks out there that do a lot of great work. It's just that for us, we appreciate the fact that Laravel comes with so many features that we find beneficial for our projects. That is why we go ahead and we utilize it.
With such a great community and documentation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's the thing that I really got impressed at first when I saw Laravel about 4 or 5 years ago. It's the level of documentation they have, even at time.
Yeah.
We started with Laravel. We were one of the first buy-ins on Laravel. I think it was 2012, right?
Yeah.
2012, 2013, something like that?
Yeah, it's maybe 5 years, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Not exactly.
That was
sure,
a great,
but
that was a great decision.
Yeah. I think for me, I remember my first delve into Laravel. I think I was on 4.2 or so, and I was blown away with the fact that you a lot of the times, like coming from a place where I was manually using like standard PHP, where you had to do a lot of the functionalities yourself, to have a framework that allows you to easily create an API, which is it can be complex if you're trying to create that the whole application from the scratch, and to jump into an application that has a lot of the functionalities ready made for you. So you essentially just the ingredients are there for you. You just mix it how you want to mix it. It was such
saves a lot of time.
Oh yeah, it saves a lot.
Yeah.
So
a lot of time and money.
Yeah.
So the next question comes from Alexis in California. She wants to know why, when I make simple changes to my website, does it cost me so much in web development?
That's a good question for her.
Yes. Yes.
just to make put some context to it, I work mainly with Magento, and Magento is known to like, I just want to make a small change, and it become like 2 weeks of pain. It's just like, basically, it's mostly a lot of elements. When you do software development, you try to like make everything independent from themselves. Like everything is a module, so like you can plug and play if you want it. If you don't want it, you can remove it, and try to not break things up when you move things around.
Yeah.
Problem is, sometimes with constraint like time, resources, budget, whatever, things can become messy. Things can become complicated too, because big software sometimes require like it's basically the Titanic. Like, oh, there's an iceberg. Yeah, I want to move the ship, but it's big. It's hard to manage and try to move it around. So what happened in those cases, even if it seems small to you, it's like the tip of the iceberg. Sometimes there's a lot of interconnection behind it, like maybe multiple database, multiple system, and speaking to each other. That's the kind of thing that, like, if for a human being you see your screen is, there's something like, I want to change just that small thing. Yes, but that small thing can have like 10, 20, 30 connections to different modules, different things around. And sometimes it's just like the logic that you as a human use is not the same logic as a computer use. And like even like I've been a dev for like, I don't know, like 10, 15 years. And even sometimes I can't do it in like 2 days, And 4 days later, it's like,
Is it reasonable to say that it's usually predictable? Like if her name is Alexis from New York?
Yeah.
So if Alexis has that request, is it reasonable to say that the developer should know how much time it's going to take? Or is it kind of like, you're feeling in the dark and you're not 100% sure?
Like, let's give like another example. You have a house, okay? And you want to renovate stuff. You have a wall. Yeah, there's supposed to be some wires and plumbing and stuff behind it, But before you open the wall, sometimes it's just like, you don't really know. You think you know. But then you open the wall and just like, why the wire is like that? Why the plumbing is going that way? Why there's no valve? And then you find like all construction issue, like the woods plank are just like not the right, all that kind of stuff that sometimes some dev, like even myself, would try to be humble or capacity, but sometimes it's like, I can't do it. I'm Rambo, man. I can't go to war and do stuff. And you like to do that, and then you open the box and just like, oops, So sometimes it's more about being like, try to manage expectation, and one easy trick to manage that is mostly like how many unknowns that you have. Can you count them? Like, can you make a list of like, do you really know that? I think it's not good enough. You think, but maybe that's wrong. And as you add all those wrong together and like, I don't know this, I don't know this, I don't know this. If you have 10 unknowns and you're all wrong on all of those, that's a lot of issue that you have to solve first before you can solve your main issue that you want to change.
There's a thing I'd like to bring up once in a while.
Sure.
I'm going to share the link in the comments on LinkedIn. It's called the Hofstadter law, and it states basically, it always takes longer than you expect, even when you take into account the Hofstadter law. And this was in '79, and basically to describe widely experienced difficulty of accurately estimating the time it takes to complete a task or subsection. And if I'm not mistaken, this guy was in computer or something like that. But it's true. Like, there's so many things that you cannot foresee, you cannot plan for, you can hope, you can by experience say.
Yeah, so I think just to add to that, it is a scenario where you have something that you based on experience, because for us here, we've been dealing with PHP and different kinds of applications for a long time. So based on our experience, we can say, okay, this is the term we use is approximate effort. this is the approximate effort it would take for us to be able to deliver this. However, what we also do is that we know based on this Hofstadter law that you can never really fully say that this is actually going to take this amount of time. So what we do is that we always try to constantly update the customer, let them know at each point. We set up Scrum meetings. If necessary, we schedule calls in order to be able to say, give live updates. So the choice can be made in terms of saying, okay, do we continue? How do we proceed from here based on what it is that we discovered? You open the bag and oops, it wasn't what you expected. So how do you proceed? And that is how we manage projects. And I think, go for it.
And one of the good way to not have any surprise will actually cost you a lot of money up front. So basically, if you take the time to open the hood and analyze every single detail, you have to pay for that time anyway. Also, when you build an estimate, if you really want to have something so accurate, then you're talking about an architecture design, which takes days and days and days to build. So when you analyze first and then you actually build an architecture design with diagram and all of that, you ended up spending weeks on something, and you have to pay for that time in order to get just no surprise. So when you just work right away on something, you very likely you're gonna spend less time than if you would have spent that time up front and accomplished the work. So it's just that it's untangible. You cannot really see it. You would have to build the same project in one way
in order to do a fair comparison.
Exactly, and have the exact comparison. But by experience, you're gonna save time and money this way.
Also, because I have something else to add, it's there's a thing. It's I would say I call it knowledge over time. It's because a lot of people, when they start, I want to do this, okay, and they want a deadline or an objective. I want this in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and But the thing is, that's a paradox. I would say is the point in time where the less of the project is that first day, And as you work on that project, as you discover it, as you speak, and as you starting to understand things, as the time goes on, you get that knowledge, you learn that new stuff, And at that point, as you get more knowledge, you're able to do better estimate, better understand what's happening. But then, if you say, I'm going to do that in 1 month, but 3 weeks later, you know a lot more, and you should say, oh, I should have said 2 months because it's bigger than I thought. But that's the thing. It's try to find a way to balance the knowledge over time that you acquire, and that's why sometimes Andrew said, it's you estimate maybe 2 to 4 weeks, but you keep constant communication to it's important to keep people updated. It's okay, 1 week later, is it going as good as you thought? Is it going to be worse, or just but keep the communication open. So in 1 week, it's oh, hey, it's going well. Maybe it's going to be 3 weeks, and then 2 weeks later, oh, we have that big issue, But at least we can adjust the estimate as time goes on, and as the knowledge goes up, we're able to be more precise on what we want to accomplish and what's going to take as work.
Okay. In relation to what has just been said, one thing that is a problem in any developer world is the micromanagement, because there's what Abraham Lincoln said. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Is totally applicable for devs. It's the reality, and that's why we often say that they're gonna look, investigate, think for 60-70% of the time, and then they're gonna code for 30%, 40% of the time. That's exactly that. And if they keep being interrupted, if they keep being micromanaged, it interrupts that creativity flow. And the dev has to restart again, over and over again. And if you want to talk about, extra costs and delays, here's one of the major responsibility, in the dev environment.
Next question is from Walter in Pennsylvania. How does the estimation process work for web development projects? I find them very different between companies.
The think it goes back to what we said to the last question.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the thing is like every company have different experience with different software, different like basically all developers have their own experience, you know, work experience, and it's hard because like sure if you start okay, there's two type of project. The one you start from scratch.
Yeah.
That can be a lot easier to estimate, you know, like based on what the client will have as a specification for like I want this, and then try to estimate on that. And based on different experience, you're going to get maybe a nice total, but it goes back again to what we talked earlier, you know, like the knowledge over time, like the point where you know the less about the project is at the beginning. And then as you progress with it, you know, like when a project, when it starts, okay, you think you have it all right, but then 1 month later, 2 months later, some requirement can change, some stuff can happen. So that can be the kind of thing that can differ between some company, because some company will maybe not account for that, other will account for that. So it's like on that part, I would say like it's best to just like discuss with the company, trying to understand what are their own process, their own thinking. And you know, it's not because the number is lower or higher. It's not a score. You know, it's not a high score. It's just like at the end, you just want to find a company that's just going to work with you, listen to your needs, and try to match your business needs with like the technical needs that you want, and try to do their best at that. And then there's a project that you get, you know, like already live with all kinds of whatever happened in there. And then you discover, and that kind of project, it's like, it's sure like you have an e-commerce with Magento, just taking Magento as an example, but you have e-commerce with Magento. I work with different e-commerce with Magento, and you think, oh, it's another Magento. Yeah, but like people can do so many things different in different ways, in different mindset, and then you open this is like, sometimes first feeling is like, what happened? You know, what happened there? And trying to understand all those things.
But that's the thing. Like, there's so many different paths to get to what you want to
Exactly,
get done.
exactly.
That when you open the hood, you have to figure out which path the guy took. It's not like a car. You open the hood, you know how it's supposed to be, and you can work. You can change the engine if you need. But when it's not the case, when like in development, there's 20 different paths you could have took, and every developer has his own style.
Yeah, and sometimes you have standard, like Magento, you have standard, Laravel too, you have standards, you know, like the core library are just like working that way. Then you open it, somebody hacked the library. You know, like it's not working as it's supposed to be. That engine is not supposed to, it doesn't work how it's supposed to be. And you're just like, okay, this is unknown, something new just pop up in your face. Just, okay, we need to revise everything and try to understand what happened there. Because I'm pretty sure they did that for a good reason. I'm pretty sure of that. But what is the reason? If there's no documentation, if there's no comments in the code, anything, that just adds so much more to just trying to understand what's happening.
It's the context too. What context the developer was in. And that is a problem also from a developer to another, because even sometimes within their own, from a developer to another, they don't take the time to think about what I'm wondering, like, okay, it looks not good. It really doesn't look good. And I'm wondering what context this guy was in, you know? But up front, like, we have projects here that anyone would look inside and be like, how the heck? But there was a context to it. There's always a context to it.
Yeah.
And so it's important to assume that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just sometimes it's like archaeology. You find fossils in the ground and just like, what happened? You know? And it's not in a bad way. It's more like you have to understand that without having other information, and that sometimes can make it hard. You know?
Yeah.
In my opinion, to address Walter's original question, I think that in development on the business side, estimates, if a company does even provide them, is a guideline. It's a guideline that you need to use. But I think the common theme in the answers here is communication. So if you're looking for an estimate in concrete on a code base that you're asking a new developer who's never seen it before, provide you with an estimate, honestly, no matter what they say, it should be treated as a guideline. And you need to have regular meetings every 1 or 2 days. You need to say, okay, feature number 1 that we asked for that you had estimated to be 2 weeks, where are you reached on it after 2 days? How are you feeling? Are you hitting any obstacles? Are you hitting any roadblocks? That's the only way you're going to get through that project, because people can provide you estimates. A lot of times they're just guessing, you know. How long is it going to take you to clean out your garage? I don't know. It's probably going to take me a day. It ends up taking you 3 hours, right? So there's so many factors, but the regular communication, whether it's daily, every 2 days, 3 times a week, is the only thing that's going to give you peace of mind and make you realize if you're going to stay on budget or not.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
And up front, anyone who works on an estimate has to assume that he's going to be wrong in some ways.
And he's estimating the unknown as well. But I understand a business owner asking for an estimate because they want to see if it's in their budget. But there's huge wild cards and unknowns. But a diligent person will meet daily with their development team, or every 2 days with their development team, where you reached. Oh, you know what? That thing that I said it was going to take me 2 weeks, it's already done. Okay, great. Or there's no way it's going to be done in 2 weeks. You should know right away, so you can.
But even with our internal ERP, at first, not even that, but before some other project I've been involved in, I was like that too. Like, okay, someone tells me 5 days, it takes 7, and I'm like, what the heck? Now it's for me. After years of it took me years to realize that, and now it's more like, here's the feature. How long you need? About 10 days. Cool. Because I want to know, is it months or is it a few days? If it's just a few days, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
If we're developing a map feature on the CRM like we did, and if I would have been told it would take 6 weeks, that might be expensive for what we're gonna do with it.
Yeah.
If you have this mindset,
yeah,
you're good. But if you have the mindset of it's supposed to take 10 days and it takes 11 and you get nervous, you're gonna fail.
On the same kind of topic,
Oh.
similar.
Is this an estimate
Chase,
podcast?
well, it's not estimate,
Seems
but
to be.
Chase from Georgia asked, "What's your strategy for accomplishing projects on budget and on time?"
We sort of discovered it.
It's communication. Communication and managing the expectation is the key to me.
Right on.
Next time, run these questions by me.
They're coming in live.
Oh, they're coming in live. Oh, I'm sorry.
Live, and
I
also
forgot.
from emails
I forgot about
and
that.
all sorts of stuff.
I guess from a developer perspective, just to go on that question that I just asked, I think it's the responsibility of the developer to make sure that your project is on time. So, personal experience, what I do is I say, okay, the project is estimated for 10 days. I give myself a personal deadline of 8 days. Reason for that is just so that I have a deadline that I'm working towards that is closer to a little closer than the actual deadline. That way, I can, for day 1, I know this is what I need to do. For day 2, this is what I need to do. So spread it out according to the personal deadline that you give yourself, and try as much as possible to meet each of the targets that you have for the day. If you can do that, day 1, it's supposed to take you 8 hours, but then you had to spend an extra hour in order for you to meet the target of day 1. I would suggest that you do that. Day 2, similar things. You can find out on day 3, you actually, instead of 8 hours, you completed your task in 4 hours. Then you have an extra 4 hours to begin work for day 5. Or day 4, day 5. So that way, when you plan yourself as a developer, and you're able to meet your targets for your personal deadline, that way you're always sure that you're going to be able to meet the customer's deadline as well. Of course.
You see now, and this is the thing. Now, when Chase asked that question, I need to know where's the deadline and the budget coming from. Okay? So like in your example, you're saying if the deadline is 10 days, I'll work on getting it to 8 days.
Yeah.
Did the deadline come from the boardroom? From non-technical people that are just saying, well, our budget's 10 days, so hey, you got to get this done in 10 days?
Yeah.
Or did the 10 days come from you? Right, and I think that's important. to answer Chase's question,
Sure.
is like, because I've seen a lot of times where a development team or a programmer will come up with a deadline, and then the boardroom, the client, if they're not technical, might say, well, you know what, that's not our budget. We don't have that.
Yeah.
And so it's important not to change the estimate according to what the boardroom says, right?
Yeah, very important.
Yeah.
Good job, guys.
But in your example, just a small follow-up, in your example, was it you that set the 10-day?
Oh no, like
It was set to you? I mean, sent to you?
in this scenario, it has been estimated. I actually did the estimate.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, just
I
making
did
sure.
the 10-day estimate. That is what.
Because you normally hit your estimates, so it's curious to find out.
Okay, hear that, guys, live.
Yeah.
I hit my estimates.
You too, Bruno. You too.
That's amazing. Always delegate them.
Alyssa from Tennessee wants
You
to
mic'd
know,
up?
how do I prevent technical debt for my business?
Oh, that's a nice one. That's like, yeah. I can jump on that?
Yes, Bruno. You seem excited about it? You want to drink our water first?
Yeah. Okay.
You want a shot? Like we have some. I have some ramen
Okay.
whiskey.
Like, okay, there's no good way, okay, because if you're a business, even you're profitable and like you're going to use debt as a leverage, you know, so you're going like still going to borrow to make investment, anything like, sure, if you pay your groceries with that, that's bad, you know, but basically every business will need to use debt as a leverage to move forward.
We're talking about technical debt, right?
Yeah, I know,
Okay,
I know. I'm
okay.
just, you know,
Perfect.
I'm starting with that.
Oh, okay. Good.
When you jump with software, okay, as a dev, it's like, if I have all the time in the world to make everything clean, everything commented, everything documented, like, would be a like perfect world. No? That's not the world we have. No? So what happens is when you start a project, it's mostly like you're going to have technical debt. I'm sorry, like that's going to happen. If it, like you get the best programmer, you get Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, well, not Steve Jobs, but sorry, but like, you know, you get all the best people, it's still going to happen. Because to like, for budget constraint, for like the feature you want to develop, for the client, your market, whatever, you're going to have some time to push forward. And it's a matter of like, how much technical debt can you tolerate to put in your project, and try to not like drown yourself with that. You know, like for sure, if you're like, okay guys, we have to deliver this, perfect. You get the dev team making a big effort for 1-2 weeks. Okay, let's put that live. You know, when that's on production, perfect. You push that. Okay, that's done. Remember, like once that's done, don't jump on the next crunch and next emergency and next fire for like the next 6 months over and over again, because you're not going to keep control on technical.
Well, that's
you
the
know?
thing. Yeah.
It's about keeping control of that. Like your house, like if you start borrowing for a car, for like everything, and you get yourself out of control, that's when bad things happen. If you're able, like as a, I don't know what your job is, but like as a marketing person, as owner, business owner, whoever it is, if you say, okay, let's push forward, then pay back that debt to at some point, you know, like refactor the stuff, take a debt, just like, hey, we did some bad things in that file, and just go clean that up, you know, like.
There's a thing I keep. Well, okay, that's my belief in non-scientific or scientific belief. That is, for every 75% of new feature development, you need to spend 25% of refactoring and adapting, and
Exactly.
and that is a problem too, because for most people they believe it's just an expense, right?
Yeah, but like at some point, for sure you can tolerate that for like maybe 1 year, 2 years. At some point, it's going to be unbearable. But
it's catching you up.
Yeah, and you're not going to feel it right away, especially if you're not like on the dev team. You know, the dev team going to like, hey man, this broken, this is like, and then at some point, just like, hey, we're not reaching our deadline. Everything is so slow. It's been 2 months. We did that, and like, what's happening? And then you think, oh, the dev are not good. No, it's because that debt is becoming too big.
Multiple times we saw clients in the past years that we're not refactoring along the way. And in order to just adapt and refactor just in a way to make it stable, actual, would take 2-3 months of work.
Yeah, because it's going to accumulate with interest. The more you,
So
the
that
more
is
you
a big
borrow,
debt, yeah.
yeah.
The longer you wait, the bigger the cost is and bigger the interest.
Well, it's understandable too, you know?
Yeah.
If you have a business owner and you push live, you push the prod, all his dreams are online
Yeah.
and working properly, you gotta go knocking on his door and say, by the way, that's all broken. You know, there's things that are propped up with sticks and cards and everything. We gotta go back and spend maybe well, it's all relative, but we gotta go back and spend around 25% of the time that we've already spent.
Yeah.
So if you spent 100 hours, you got to spend 24 more hours just going there and cleaning up.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess if it's explained properly.
Yeah.
And it's good in a way because like for e-commerce, for example, you're live, you're making money, people are going to check out, they're paying stuff,
Yeah.
they're buying stuff, you know, like
Yeah.
it's just important at that point. Let's say you do a big push to put something live to production, perfect. You add some shortcut. That's understandable. You have some deadline to meet and you have to push this on production. But then once it's live, remember that you have some debt that you have to pay back. You know, like
Yep.
you just bought a house. If you open a business, a shop just down on the street, you know, like you have going to invest first, but after some while you have to pay the bank after that. You know, like
No, I want my new features.
That is the
I want
problem.
more features.
That is the problem. A lot of
Yeah.
people, when they get the new features, get so excited they want to move on the next
Yeah.
ones without taking a step back and say, okay, what do I have to fix in order to get my next one properly and not get that debt that in 6 months I'm going to have to spend 2 months in refactoring.
And then
Or
when you
rebuild.
change developers in a year, that new developer takes a look and says, wow, this is
Jesus,
terrible,
yeah.
right? This is horrible. What they don't know is that the original developer was never given a chance to go back and,
Yeah.
and clean up.
And
Okay, that's a good one.
yeah, and
Sorry,
That's a
just
great
before-
question.
On our own ERP, we spent over 6,000 hours on it.
Yeah,
On which there's probably 1,500 that is just refactoring, fixing,
Yeah.
revisiting.
That's great.
And that's what Nick has been
Updating,
forcing me once in a while, would stop me and say, look, I know you want this feature, but here's 12 tickets that I really like to get rid of before we tackle this
Yeah.
next feature.
yeah.
And I also add just like if you do a feature, like do a postmortem, monitor that feature. I saw so many times I see people like pushing features like a feature factory. And so sure, you're making feature, but like, are they working? Are they making you money? How much you spend on it? And then are you getting something back in return? Because I saw some that just like, they think like once that feature is done, we need more work, you know, like they feel like they've done something and they want to fill their work time, you know, the schedule, and they want to push more feature. And just at some point, hey, take a step back. Are they working?
Yeah.
No,
You know what you make me think? Is that it's almost as if you're going to develop a big feature or do a big sprint, that you should account for that 20-25% of time for refactoring in it. So if it's going to be a 3-month sprint or 2-month sprint or whatever feature, then you had some times, you know, it's almost as if it should be included. So, okay, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to deliver it, but also we include 2 weeks of revisiting what we've done, you know, refactoring some of the code, and that would make sense this way.
and also like if just doing a postmortem and knowing if that feature work or not, and you say, hey, you know, like our sales are up like 10%, for example. Share that with the dev team. Honestly, it's just like so they know they're working on some things like, oh, that works.
brings result, yeah.
No, we're seeing some results, something like that, just so people are aware of and knowing which feature work. And it doesn't matter if a feature doesn't work, as long as you learn from
Yeah,
it.
because they have nothing to cheer on. Like, they have
Yeah.
nothing to celebrate about.
But so, yeah, it's just like, and if you try to take time to understand how the feature, those who succeed, how it happened,
Yeah.
those who fail, how it happened, learn from that. No, just learn from that, and so the next feature, you're going to be more prepared and more like
Yeah.
the better way to just push the next feature and have success with that feature. It's better to do one good feature than 3 that doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Good.
Good question.
Yeah.
Great question.
So Sanjeev asks from New York, I hear a lot about documentation and how important it is because how important it is because it costs a lot of time and money. I really don't see the value.
In documentation?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the
You're the
developer
big
that's
guy.
going to work on it is not going to be the developer for life. So, you know, you have to think about the next team that's going to take over your project.
Yeah.
And that's how they're going to be able to look at it. So,
Documentation also works for the current developer too, if they have to go back to
they
something they
never
built like
remember.
a year ago.
Exactly.
I don't remember what I did a year ago.
I at home, for my code lab, I have this Raspberry Pi in my code.
Yeah, you document
And every
it?
time I look at it 2 months after, I'm like, what did I do that?
Yeah, yeah.
And we're talking about like 300 lines of code. That's
Yeah.
all. You know, and I keep, why did I do that? You know,
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Is that a real question?
Yeah. No,
Does that make sense?
But you know, like it's, I would say like, try to give an answer is more like, there's different type of documentation.
Yeah.
You know, like at first, like if you we're talking about technical debt earlier, you know, like if you're cleaning your code after yourself, like the Boy Scouts, you know, you go in the forest, you get out all the trash and bring it back with you. Don't stay there. You know? Like if the code that developer is making, putting some comments, sometimes he's taking some shortcut, but those shortcut is explaining why he's doing that. No, like basic, like the variable names are doing fine, like are named fine and everything. It's a matter of like, if the code is mostly clean, it's easier. It takes less time to document because like the code is readable. It can be understood by people. Then there's like how to set up the project, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should be back on LinkedIn in a few moments.
I meant like, I almost feel like that's not a real question because it's so obvious that it's important.
Well, it may be, but at the same time, it's true that I saw that in the past that some clients were wondering why do I have to pay for documentation?
Mm.
Why that much time on documentation? Because it takes time to do documentation.
It's a matter of balance, you know, like it's just like if you take just 5% or 10% of your time just to document stuff and making sure stuff is understandable and clean, just like that's already so much more than 90% of the project, you know, like and just so the next day even yourself you go in there just like okay, yeah, this for what other reason.
In that case, it should be organic. As you're writing the code, you're documenting along with it. Because if you finish writing the code, you say you want to go back to document. That's when there's like it becomes an effort. Like if you write a method and at the same time you just put in the documentation what the method is doing and simple like things like that. That would it would speed up. That it goes hand in hand with the development as well.
Anytime I've seen a disastrous project, it's
There was no
because there's no
documentation.
documentation,
Exactly.
there's no comments,
Yeah.
So that means this person this time did not value documentation,
or they didn't know.
or they didn't know.
Yeah, like if you're not, if you're a regular non-developer, hiring a developer.
Yeah.
But it's like habits, you know, like it's like if you wake up in the morning and like you go to the gym, you eat well, you drink, you know, like it's I would say if you develop, it's all that kind of stuff. It's just like if you try to keep technical debt not too high, you know, like try to keep things clean, the code is clean, you know, trying to communication is good with everybody, you know, and then you push a feature like we said earlier, like we do a postmortem. That postmortem is documentation too, you know, like it's what happened with that, you know, learning from those projects. I mean, it should grow over time as you do things, I would say, right in a way, you know. Sure, if you try to write a book, 2,000 pages of documentation, I mean, just like, that's another issue. But like, if you try to do things right and just like legit, you need documentation. But no, it's not like, you're just trying to find a balance. And if you do a project clean, that documentation will create by itself, you know, because the developer is going to have the 2 hours just like how to set up the project, basically, how that database is working, like the database schematic, for example, stuff like that. Just have time to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I remember we had one guy in the past that was so meticulous on documentation, and when someone took over, he actually came to see me and said, Raf, that documentation is so top-notch that it took me no time to set myself up.
Is that Eric Lacasse?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Eric Lacasse if he
was really good. Right?
Yeah.
And the thing I wanted to add about documentation is, it's like the code refactoring. It's not something you make at first and you forget forever. You need to go back into your documentation and update it. If you do not do that, your documentation becomes useless, and you're right, there's no value and you're spending that money for no reason.
Oh, so not only is documentation important, but updating your documentation is important.
Of course. And a lot of people do not.
Yeah.
That is a challenging part of development, because
Okay.
not all dev think about going back in documentation and updating the documentation.
Yeah, and just to add on that, it's not exactly documentation, but also like, especially for Laravel development, what they do is that you have what is known as a migration script. Essentially what it does, it builds your database. Unfortunately, when most of the project is on production already, during the development time, the developers are meticulous in getting the migration script working, because of course they need it to run on the production, but as soon as the project is set up, that's it. So, and then you have cases where other developers go into the code base, they do the work, they add new fields into the database, they do a lot of things, but they don't update the migration script.
You know, we should make an infographic or something that shows the cycle of development
Yeah.
at the base. You know, just a basic one, saying that, okay, feature development, refactoring, documentation, and just loop that.
Yeah.
Because that's
It's
the
a
reality.
continuous,
After
yeah.
each big piece
There's
of
a lot
code,
of
you have to
touch
review
bases,
the code,
yeah.
you have to review your documentation.
Yeah.
Am I still up to date? Sometimes some URL and password changes, and you do not update this, then it's obsolete.
True.
Are we moving to the
Sure.
next
Yes.
question, please?
Next question. Unknown.
Oh no.
When can you assume you've crossed the junior web developer border and become an intermediate dev?
Your turn.
Interesting.
That's a good one.
Interesting.
So when do you cross from being junior to intermediate?
You learn to say no.
When you cried a few times.
You cried the first time?
when you got into fetal position and cried. I said, okay, you just learned it.
No, I think what determines, for me, this is relative to everybody. So what determines that you've graduated is the amount of time it takes you to work on projects. Junior developer, when I started out, Stack Overflow, Google was my friend. I literally had to search for so many syntax and issues, errors that crop up. So many of that. As a junior developer, you're going to experience that, and I think if you're lucky, you're in a company that allows you to allow you to progress in those natural ways that allow you to move to different levels, learn from your mistake essentially. So, but you get to the point where the errors that the things that you usually search for, you no longer search for those, because of course you've gained that knowledge. You are able to write your code with the correct syntax off your head, because you've memorized your code and you've practiced the format of not copying and pasting code, but actually writing the code, because it sticks to your memory better that way. You've done that. You find that you're able to picture your project in advance, know the pitfalls of what the development process.
I think the real answer is you're becoming an intermediate when you stop using Dreamweaver.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but essentially, just to cap that is, you move to intermediate when you're able to complete applications without having to resort to a lot of the tools that you need to help you to get projects started. I think for me personally, that is one of the ways you can gauge your level as a developer in terms of knowledge growing up.
What's next for Simply PHP?
What's next?
What's next for Simply PHP? Well, honestly, we're trying to get through this coronavirus panic. You know, so we're working through that right now to make sure that our staff is feeling comfortable. Because as you know, it goes a little bit against our business model to work from home. So we are kind of working out something there, so that, like I said, so that our staff is going to feel comfortable and safe amidst all this panic. And what's next for us? We're just trying to grow. We're trying to, always working on ways to add plus value to our clients. I don't want to sound like a commercial, but
That's the reality.
that's a big thing, yeah. The big thing is we know that we grow and we have less trouble when our clients are happy.
Yeah.
I've never had a client who's super happy give me a hard time about anything, right?
Yeah.
So that to me personally, for my role, that is the thing that I'm always concentrating on is making sure our clients are happy, also making sure that our staff and our teams are happy, and we're always trying to grow. We're always trying to improve. We just finished a big renovation here in the office. So yeah, we're feeling good about it. We're feeling good.
Tony,
Yeah.
I'm happy.
You're happy?
Wow. Guys, you're hugging.
Oh my God! I just hugged somebody.
But the thing is value is something that Tony and I have been focused for years now to bring more and more value all the time. But I think in 2020 we kind of decided that we would really go all in on that for both clients and staff, the company as a whole. And as a matter of fact, unless it gets canceled because of this hysteria, like we won't. I mean, we're supposed to go in California to meet with that marketing genius for 3 days. That's also part of it because he's all about value.
Business genius too.
Business genius, yeah.
Plus value genius.
Yeah. So if it goes as to plan, this year going to be quite incredible.
Awesome.
And you know what? I'm happy here.
Oh, you're happy.
Guys, I'm happy too, but
No, let's do a virtual.
there we go. With a tap on the back.
Did we add another question or we're good for now?
we're good.
That's it.
Okay, so LinkedIn has been an issue, but
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Thanks for
Thank you.
your questions.
Thank you.